Greetings, I'm your host, Dr. Wolfula, and after a long 16-year wait, I'm finally reviewing a new Friday the 13th movie. Well, kinda. I'm covering Sweet Revenge, a short film launching the new Jason Universe initiative that, is also a commercial for Angry Orchard Hard Cider. Now, what is Jason Universe? Well, with the dumb name and its logo's crudely rendered 3D mask and the word universe spelled with a 1 and 3, get it, 13? You might assume Jason Universe is just some Friday the 13th fan site like I initially did. But no, Jason Universe is an official effort spearheaded by Horror Inc., the original rights holders of Friday the 13th. Following a rights dispute between Victor Miller, the writer of the original Friday the 13th, and Sean S. Cunningham, the director and producer, Victor Miller won the case, which resulted in Cunningham and Horror Inc. losing the rights to Friday the 13th to a certain degree, and leading to Victor Miller, under his own company Friday the 13th LLC, giving A24 the rights to make a Crystal Lake prequel show starring Velma herself, Linda Cardellini, as Mrs. Voorhees.
Steve should never have opened this place again. There's been too much trouble here.
Now, I'm no Shelley Finkelstein, but my assumption is that basically everything established in the original Friday the 13th is owned by its original writer Victor Miller now, which includes Pamela Voorhees, Jason Voorhees, Camp Crystal Lake, and the whole backstory. The thing is, the iconic hockey-masked adult incarnation of Jason was not introduced in the original film. This was an innovation of Part 3. Victor Miller doesn't own that, so my assumption is that this created a legal loophole where Horror Inc. was allowed to continue using a hockey-masked, machete-wielding slasher character named Jason without oversight from Victor Miller, as long as they didn't use the Friday the 13th title, the last name Voorhees, his ma, or Camp Crystal Lake without Victor Miller getting a cut.
Well, I'm Mrs. Voorhees, an old friend of the Christies.
Basically, everything that makes Jason Jason, besides his hockey mask and machete, is off limits for Horror Inc. now unless Miller's involved. But Horror Inc. obviously knows that the Jason name by itself, along with the hockey mask, are lucrative enough that it's worth relaunching the character under Jason Universe to try to figure out new ways to wring Jason dry of all he's worth with the scraps they have left to work with, and to create some semblance of brand unity. Horror Inc. had legendary effects artist Greg Nicotero design a standardized look for Jason across all of the Jason Universe projects, and, it's kinda bland. It feels like a middle ground between the Part 3 and New Line looks of Jason, but he kinda looks like he's a guest star in an episode of MASH. And the hockey mask, with its square eyes, big chevrons, and sparse breathing holes, looks odd, but again, even the hockey mask feels like an attempt to re-establish control over the Jason brand, giving the mask a more specific design, down to its 13 breathing holes, that can be trademarked for merchandise and other licensing. When the hockey mask looks like shit, you'll know you're buying an official Jason Universe product. Under the Jason Universe banner, there are plans to develop a new video game starring Jason, and Halloween Horror Nights will have a Jason Universe house, but the crown jewel of this endeavor will, of course, be to try to make the coveted 13th full-length Friday the 13th film. And even though Jason Universe has nothing to do with the upcoming Crystal Lake show, Jason Universe still shares news about that show, and this seems like an attempt from Horror Inc. to establish an amicable relationship with the main rights holders of Friday the 13th, so when Jason Universe finally makes a full-length Friday the 13th film, they'll hopefully be able to license the rights to all the shit they don't own the rights to, instead of having to dance around it by avoiding referencing Jason's backstory, changing names, or other frustrating bullshit. It was announced this year that Horror Inc. and Victor Miller's Friday the 13th LLC are collaborating for some projects under the Jason Universe banner, and this shaky alliance will hopefully lead to a proper full-length Friday the 13th movie. But for now, where it all begins for Jason Universe is Sweet Revenge, a short written and directed by Michael Nelson. Not Michael J. Nelson from Mystery Science Theater 3000, Michael P. Nelson. Now, usually Friday the 13th shorts are fan films, and I don't really cover fan films because they're free to watch anyway, and I'd feel like a dick critiquing a low-budget fan-made work that can be watched for free. So a video from me on a fan film, even the popular Never Hike Alone shorts, would just feel like a promotion with nothing much to offer you or I, and I'd rather spend my time discussing something I can really sink my teeth into. Sweet Revenge is a different case from other Friday the 13th shorts in that it not only has the official backing of the original Friday the 13th rights holders, along with series creator Victor Miller credited as a producer, but the short also has a corporate sponsor, making it more than fair game for critique. Yeah, as the title of the short film hints, Sweet Revenge is a commercial for Angry Orchard hard cider. It's like a Super Bowl ad without the budget to be played at the Super Bowl. Angry Orchard even made a special thriller pack for Halloween with a blood orange Jason flavor, but despite having interest in trying it for this video, the thriller pack is not available in my area. But yeah, the official live-action return of Jason Voorhees is shilling an alcoholic cider brand. Does Jason even drink? It feels like one of those vices he would be against, but whatever. This short film being sponsored does make me fear that this Jason Universe initiative will mostly be used to relaunch Jason as a platform to promote products, where Jason will basically just be a spooky spokesman when a brand wants some edgier marketing for a product. But it can be argued that this brand tie-in is just a way to raise capital for future projects, including a full-length film. But it's fucking Jason. You should be able to easily get investors or a big studio involved in a new Jason flick without having to prostitute him first.
Show's over.
In defense of the short's product placement, though, while it's not subtle, with a bottle or case of Angry Orchard being present in nearly every shot of the first half of the short, the brand disappears once the horror starts up, and you forget it's intended to be a hard cider ad until the credits. Before I review the short, Sweet Revenge is about 13 minutes long and free to watch on the Jason Universe channel. It's the length of an Aquatate episode, so if you haven't seen it yet, I really recommend watching it first. There's a link to it here and in the description. Sweet Revenge honestly has about as much plot as a typical full-length Friday the 13th movie. It's just obviously heavily truncated.
You're a force of nature, and you didn't run away.
A girl named Eve goes out on a weekend trip with her friends to a cabin in Crystal Lake, all the while drinking delicious Angry Orchard hard cider. Man, if Angry Orchard didn't smell like cat piss, I'd totally want to drink some. Eve meets Harold, the owner of the redeveloped cabin property that was once Camp Crystal Lake.
Property's had a bit of a troubled past.
With Harold vaguely alluding to the backstory without needing to give Victor Miller too much money.
The usual story. Revenge, lots of murder.
Harold even gives Eve an apple. Oh, I get it. It's like a Bible thing. It really brings the hard cider brand synergy full circle. Oh yeah, Eve is engaged to a dude named Kyle, surprisingly not named Adam, who Eve has no chemistry with, and they barely seem to know each other, choosing to spend their time separately.
I will go get my swimsuit.
Who said anything about a swimsuit?
And any semblance of a narrative becomes abstract to rush along the final act as Eve goes canoeing out on the lake by herself, and after being pulled underwater by Jason, Eve somehow re-emerges from the lake several hours later unscathed, finding Harold dead after a hardcore game of apple bobbing, and Eve finds her fellow cabin tenants hung out to dry. Despite being a corporate effort, Sweet Revenge doesn't hold back on gore, but it's disappointing because we only see the aftermath of most of the kills. It feels like a whole Friday the 13th movie was happening off screen, but they didn't have the time or budget to show it. And speaking of Friday the 13th adjacent things, the music of the short sounds like it's trying to pass itself off as the classic Friday the 13th score while being legally distinct, and it just sounds off. Worst of all for Eve tonight, though, is that she gets cucked by her fiancé with her best friend Dana. Fortunately, Jason knows the best way to settle this amicably. By just killing all these assholes. Seeing Jason's new design in action, it looks too cartoony, exaggerated, like he's a Funko Pop version of Jason with a smaller than usual actor playing him, with low angles to try to make him imposing, but the actual killings are pretty solid. Jason's slaying of Kyle with a speedboat motor is derivative of the Weed Whacker kill in Part 7, but it's a lot more brutal. Savage as fuck! Before Jason can feed Dana a taquito, Eve pulls the machete out of her stomach and comes to Dana's rescue as the two girls drive off to safety, but only so Eve can kill Dana herself for the whole cuckoldry thing. The short ends with Jason and Eve facing each other, and it's basically implied that Eve didn't survive being drowned by Jason, and that she has whatever Jason's death curse thing is, making Eve undead or a Wendigo or whatever. The Friday the 13th comic Badlands also explored the idea of somebody else becoming an undead killer like Jason at Crystal Lake, and Sweet Revenge further reminds me of the Friday the 13th comic Abuser and the Abused, in that it tries to draw parallels between Jason and a young girl, a possible kindred spirit to Jason. But that comic doesn't end as ambiguously as Sweet Revenge does. Honestly, this short should have just ended with Eve getting her ass killed again by Jason. Sweet Revenge is an okay short, especially since it's free to watch, but with it being sponsored, it feels like it could have been a lot more, a lot longer, more fleshed out with more ripped flesh. But it feels like we just have the bare bones of a decent-ish Friday the 13th movie here that's just an excuse to sell some hard cider, instead of something that can stand on its own or act as a glorious return of Jason. It also sucks that we've been waiting years for an official Jason project, and it's not all that different from the fan films we've usually been getting. I give Sweet Revenge a super obvious Bible reference out of Kyle's Man Bun. Before I go, I just want to shamelessly give a shout out to my corporate sponsor, me! Pledge to my Patreon today to support the channel and help it continue to grow, and you'll also get access to weekly movie nights every Sunday, and archive commentaries if you missed the movie nights live. Just $5 a month to get a movie night every week. Here are the movies I'll be streaming next Sunday. Pledge to patreon.com/Dr. Wolfula if you're interested in my bonus streams, and I thank you in advance. If you liked this video, like it, and if you loved it, click the subscribe and bell buttons for more videos. I'd also like to thank these fine folks pledged to my shout-out tier on my Patreon for all of their kind support. Videos like this wouldn't be possible without all their help. Thank you for watching, see you next time. Doc signing out.